Welcome back. Now this is a video that I was hoping to do last week, but unfortunately I spent most of that week in bed sick, so here we are. Yes, we're going to talk about the Walking Dead season finale, The Last Day on Earth. And I have a lot of problems with this episode. And no, none of them have to do with the cliffhanger. Actually, I think the cliffhanger was a genius move on their part for building up season 7. I have no problems with that, but we'll get to that a little bit later. First, let's talk about this episode. This episode is the culmination of this whole half-season long introduction to Negan. Now, let me say right up front, I have read the comics, but I only read the comics behind the show. So I don't know anything other than the main spoiler in that who Negan kills in the comic. Beyond that, I don't know anything about the storyline going ahead, so let's get that out of the way right away. But as far as the show goes, The Last Day on Earth, I have to say, I went into it with relatively low expectations. I had a lot of issues with season 6 and this half season especially, and I really didn't think they were going to salvage it. And as I was watching the episode, I'm like, this is a well-made episode. The tension is there. The pacing, especially considering it was over 90 minutes, was well done. The whole claustrophobic feel of our heroes being in this RV and keep running into roadblock after roadblock, and you just feel that noose tightening. And of course, we knew from the advertisements, and basically everyone at this point knew someone's going to die. And obviously we don't know who yet, but so the tension was there, and I'm watching this episode going, this is a strong episode as far as production goes. But everything that has to do with the story is an utter mess if you put any thought to it. And that's not even getting into the whole Carol arc, which is, I don't even know. But everything that happens in this episode makes almost no sense whatsoever. I can only think of one out, and I'll get into that again a little bit later on a theory of mine on what could salvage the story. I'm not even saying it's a good idea. I just think it's the only way anything that happens in this episode makes a lick of sense. So basically, again, let's kind of dive into what this episode was about. Ignoring the Carol arc, we'll get into that a little bit later, but the whole idea is Maggie's sick, something's wrong with the pregnancy, they need to get to the hilltop where they have a baby doctor. So our heroes go off into the RV. Basically, pretty much every decent fighter that Alexandria has is now leaving Alexandria. It's a good thing that the Saviors decided to set up all these roadblocks instead of attacking Alexandria when all our heroes were gone, especially since it seems like they know they're on the road. And they keep, every time they hit another roadblock, it seems like there's more and more people. And you can see the realization, and the acting, again, is very good in this episode. You can see the realization on Rick and the others that when they decided to take on the Saviors, they're a little dog biting the tail of a much bigger and meaner dog. And I have to say, I did enjoy that aspect of it as well. But taking a step back, let's look at this entire scenario, not from the point of view of our heroes, but from the point of view of the Saviors. And again, taking out the one possibility, which I'll get into next, as a theory. But as far as we know, the Saviors know that somebody killed a bunch of their people on the road earlier in the season. Obviously, in the mid-season premiere for this second half, when Daryl blew him up with the RPG, they knew someone out there killed them. Then their facility at the satellite station got attacked and everyone was killed to a man. They captured Maggie and Carol, and that ended up resulting in a bunch of more people getting killed. And that's pretty much what they know. If you listen to the guys that met Carol on the road in this episode, they knew that that vehicle was from outside Alexandria. So they have been spying on the outside of Alexandria. But give them the benefit of the doubt. They may have gone to the hilltop. For all we know, the hilltop may be wiped out. They tortured everyone to get information, and they know that it was the Alexandrians that did it on their behalf. So they could know of this alliance between the hilltop and Alexandria. And so they know sooner or later people from Alexandria are going to try to go to the hilltop. So setting up roadblocks, okay. But the only reason why Rick and company don't just turn around and go back to the safety of their walls is because Maggie's sick. So they set up all these roadblocks, cut down ginormous trees, and create these walls, and just, it's an elaborate maze of horror. But unless they somehow know that Maggie is sick and they have to go to the hilltop, they cannot turn around, that entire plan makes no sense. Yes, it keeps them from getting to the hilltop, but what do they get from the hilltop? They get some food. But there's no reason for them to try to run the blockade that night. And of course, leading me to my theory. Now, I did see a theory. Jeremy Johns does great videos. I did watch his theory on Carol being a mole. And all due respect to Jeremy, I don't buy that theory. Not necessarily because Carol wouldn't do it, which I don't think she would, but more so the fact that plan only works if Maggie and Carol escape, and they escape by slaughtering more of Negan's men. It's a ploy on the part of Negan that doesn't make sense. But the only way anything that happens in this final episode that makes any sense whatsoever is that they have a mole in Alexandria that either poisoned Maggie or knew that Maggie was sick and knew that they had to make this run. So that could explain away some of this. But the problem is everything that leads up to this episode, everything that put everything into motion in this episode was predicated on characters making absolutely stupid decisions. Starting with Daryl and Rosita allowing Denise to go with them on the run to the pharmacy. Now, Denise is not a prisoner. She's free to come and go. But it makes absolutely no sense in the world they're in to allow your only doctor to go on a run with no training. Not that training would have kept her alive in the end, the way things played out, but it makes no sense unless you're a writer on the show and you need our heroes to have to be able to go to the hilltop for Maggie. Now, obviously, Denise was not a baby doctor, and the guy at the hilltop would be preferable, but if you're facing a almost certain death to run this blockade, I think it would be better just go back to Alexandria and let Denise read her medical books and see if she could do something. Obviously, that's not an ideal situation, but compared to what they were facing, that would be the way to go. So it really feels like the writers knew they had to get rid of Denise, or what they were planning in the finale wouldn't work. It wouldn't make sense. So that just feels, so her whole death, that whole trying to give her a little bit of characterization before she died, and that's a bad habit that I might get into later, depending on how long I want to rant. But yes, so Denise dies. and it's obvious again that she's dead because the story required it. So she's gone. Then you have, even before that, you had Daryl getting upset about the railroad tracks. I can see him going back to kind of having flashbacks to the Claimers and his time with that. That would be good storytelling, good character development, or at least, remembering things that happened. But it's still a stupid decision on his part to leave the other two alone, or let Rosita go alone, and it's just Daryl's smarter than that. And then you have him running off to, I guess, get revenge on Denise, get revenge for Denise, which of course gets Rosita and Michonne and Glenn captured. And that just again felt like, okay, we need a reason for these characters to be outside the wall. The only ones that left that had a reason to be outside the wall are Rick and the rest of them, because they need to help Maggie. I don't think all of them needed to go. It's a little, it's like some of the characters are there because it feels like, we need a lot of choices so people don't know who got killed. And, we haven't done anything with these characters for a while, so let's bring them in. It's not like they're going to... So yeah, it was a well-made episode, but it's just one that, oh my god, it's predicated on everyone making really stupid decisions. And these writers do have talent. They occasionally write really good episodes, but... So I was, this whole half season has been a mess. They announced the arrival of Negan, and I can't blame the writers for this, but it was very publicly announced, and I do pretty good avoiding spoilers. I'm a ninja when it comes to trying to avoid spoilers. I hate spoilers. First thing I read about the casting for Negan is that he's going to appear in the final episode. So basically, all these episodes in this half season, when they've been, talking about the saviors and mentioning Negan, I knew he wasn't going to show up until the final episode. So it just felt like repetitive motions and just like, okay, it's like a slow motion snuff film, because we know when Negan shows up, someone's going to die. When Negan shows up, someone's going to die. So it's like, okay, well, Negan's not going to show up until the final episode, so let's keep playing this on. And they had some decent moments here and there. The Carol Maggie episode, that was a well-made episode. Unfortunately, it was sort of the beginning of this Carol arc that makes no sense. Before I get into that, let's talk a little bit about the cliffhanger, so we can kind of wrap up the finale before I get into a little bit more discussions of season 6 as a whole. So the cliffhanger, a lot of people are ticked off, like, oh my god, we gotta wait till the fall. I think it's genius, and this is why. From everything I've read, and I don't try to read whole, this is just like what they're saying in on like Talking Dead and things like that. I mean, these are things that are out there. We're going to see the death. That's like going to be the first thing that we see when season 7 comes back in the fall. And that is going to be the catalyst for pretty much everything that happens after that. Showing just how bad Negan is, and the position that they're in, and just how hopeless it seems. If they had the person die last week, boom, dead. We've got 5 months, 6 months, 7 months until the new season comes on. That shock, doesn't matter who it is. They could have killed Rick, and it's not going to be Rick. He's one of the two that we know it's not, based on the dialogue of the episode. But it could have been Rick, and like that shock would be over by the time the episode aired. I mean, if you think of the two big mid-season finale deaths, you had Herschel and you had Beth, one that I personally still have issues with. If you watch any of my videos, you notice I've got a Beth and a Daryl McFarlane figures. So yeah, I like Beth, and that was one where, again, the bad writing of the show, I felt so manipulated with the death of Beth. We're not going to go back into season 5 for now, but I was shocked. Like, I don't know what would have happened if I had to watch the next episode that next week. And then, of course, Herschel dying in the week, the season, mid-season before that. So by the time, that was just a mid-season break. By the time the series picked back up, I kind of settled my emotions and calmed myself over my anger over that, and was ready to, let's see where this goes. I was giving it a chance. But we're not going to have that. We're going to literally have this death. It's going to be in our face, and then we're going to have oh yeah, here's the rest of the episode, and here's the rest of the half season. So I think people hate it now, but I think when the season picks back up, season 7 picks up, I think they're going to be like, that was the right decision. So just say I have no issue with the cliffhanger. As far as who it is, we know based on the dialogue in the episode that it's not Rick and it's not Carl, because the last thing Negan says is that anyone gets out of line, take the boy's other eye and feed it to its father, which means it's not going to be either of them that's getting their head bashed in. The two big theorized people are either Glenn or Daryl. And I think everyone's fearing that it's going to be Daryl, both from a storytelling point and a character point, and for everyone's eardrums that are going to burst when all the screaming in the world starts happening that night. I honestly don't think it's going to be Daryl, just because he has isolated himself so much in this season that the other characters, yes, are going to be upset and hurt, but I don't think they're going to have that visceral reaction that the writers want to make it worth them going through the hell that they're going to get for killing Daryl. I don't think the price is worth it. Glenn, he seems to be the other obvious choice. He's got those personal connections. It's whether it's just so many close calls they've gone with him at this point. It's like I don't know if that it would have the same meaning. We've seen Maggie mourn him multiple times. Obviously, this would be very in her face. I don't know if they're going to go that way. Outside of that, the thing is there's no real or other originals left to have that huge impact that I think they're wanting. So it's likely going to be Glenn. The other option possibly would be Maggie. Considering all of the backlash Game of Thrones got for their last season due to the violence towards women and the current climate, I don't think they're going to go, since they keep kind of priming this as that this is going to be the goriest, bloodiest, nastiest death the show has ever done. I don't think they're going to do the woman route. I don't see that. I could be wrong, but I don't see them going there. But if a woman's going to die, I think it could be Maggie. And it would be a good twist on that. Everyone's expecting it to be Glenn, but between her being a woman, her being pregnant, I don't know they're going to go that way. They killed the last pregnant woman, obviously Lori, when she gave birth to Judith, and really the rest of the characters that are there, I don't know if they're important enough to have that impact they're wanting. So if I had to lay money on it, I'd probably put it on Glenn, for the reasons I've outlined. Because those are the three that I was even thinking it could be Carl. I really thought they might try to go the Carl route, because they really haven't given him a whole lot to do lately, other than be protective of Enid. But he's obviously out. So really, I think it's going to be one of. If I had to put money, I'd put it on one of those three. And if you put a bat to my head and made me choose, I think I would go with Glenn at this point, because of the reasons I outlined on why I don't think it's the other two. I really had planned on going in a little bit more detail about Season 6 as a whole, but I think I've talked way too much as it is. So I'm going to do a second video either later tonight or in the next couple of days, kind of going over my issues with Season 6 as a whole, and some of the pacing issues, and I think one of the big problems they have is the fact that they're trying to do 2 8-episode seasons. I really think this season would have been a lot better if the first half of the season had been like maybe 5 episodes, and then they were able to do something in the middle that wasn't necessarily the Saviors, but the aftermath of the Walkers invading into Alexandria. The time jump I thought was a complete mistake. But again, I'll get into that into another video. So, this is sort of my first just sheer ranting video. So, please let me know what your thoughts were on the season finale, the cliffhanger, and who you think might be Negan's victim. So, I do hope you enjoyed this, and as always, until next time, I'll see you at the movies, or I guess watching TV.